Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Pain to Profits. I'm your host, Samson Jagoras, and every single week we unpack the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and habits of successful entrepreneurs in order to save you guys time and help you level up on your journey so that you can go from pain to profits. And they say that success leaves clues. Well, today I'm sitting down with Brandon Grebe of Uplift Development. He also owns a construction company and a steel company, which we'll get into, but this is his story on how he went from pain to profits. So Brandon, welcome to the show, bro.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I appreciate you, man. So we're going to jump right in. Let's help everybody understand who you are. How did you get to where you are today?
Sure. Well, I guess who I am is kind of God-fearing, Jesus-loving father, son, brother, husband, community member, board member, coach now. So it's kind of my makeup.
Yep.
Of who I am. And I guess how I've got to this point today, to kind of answer your question, it's been a long journey. I mean, going back, I always had an interest or a passion of calling it making money. And not necessarily in a greedy way, but just that value creation.
Like a fascination.
Yeah, just understanding that, I mean, you need money to buy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, as like a kid, and didn't grow up poor, didn't grow up rich. I mean, parents provided a nice household, but I mean, I remember in high school, I had an older brother who was 4 years older than me. So when he turned 21, he had a friend who had a North Carolina ID, and I was talking to some friends, and they said, "Well, hey, like, we'll pay you for a fake ID." And this is, so fortunately I didn't go down the criminal track too long, but I was like, well, this is going to be easy money. So I had an old school scanner, and started making these fake IDs, for friends. And then that kind of turned into a few different high schools, kids knowing about it. And I was selling them for $20 a pop, and made several $100s. Before, and thank God this happened, because there were starting to be random kids coming to my house at like night, like knocking on the door, like, hey,
you fake ID guy?
Yeah, like, hey, I heard you hooked up, Joe over here. And it's funny because it was all the same ID, same North Carolina, same name, everything. I would just take their picture off their school ID, put it on this one, print it off, and some
Would you like change the name on there too?
No.
So they're all like Bill Brasky.
Yeah, all of them. It was a Kirby Kaninsky out of North Carolina. I probably did almost 100 of them.
Kirby Kaninsky.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's my brother's friend. So, fortunately, but all these people started coming to my house. So, and like I said, fortunately, my mom shut that down.
She was like, "What are you doing?"
Well, yeah. She's like, "What's going on?" And I told her, she sat me down. She's like, "Yeah, you can't do that. Like, this is a felony. Like, I mean, you're falsifying IDs, like you're doing it." Again, for me, I was just like, making some money.
It just totally went over your head. You had no idea.
Well, I didn't understand the implications of like what I was doing.
Just helping some kids get some beers, man. Calm down, Mom.
Yeah, right. Some teenagers need some cheap beer, and
that is so good.
Yeah. I mean, so it's always kind of been ingrained a little bit. I remember in college, again, I mean, a poor college kid like most of us were. But me and my buddy would go to the dollar store and we would buy dollar sombreros, come back, paint them our college colors, and then go sell them at like sporting events and like summer festivals for like $5. So we bought it for $1, paints,
nice,
30 cents, and started doing so well that we like bought out all the dollar stores. Like we went around and they're like, "What are you guys doing?"
We're the sombrero guys.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, always, I guess, looking for opportunities to try and make some money.
Hustle, yeah. So
yeah, try and hustle.
Did you connect that with entrepreneurship, or was it just like just making some money? And you were going to school at that time. Speaking of sombreros, for construction management, right?
Yeah. So in college, going to for construction management, and then another major in business with commercial real estate.
Okay.
So even in college, I had a interest and passion in kind of the real estate world, whether it's construction, real estate, finance. So I kind of came up through the project management, construction world.
Was it money that was so attractive to real estate? What was the appeal to getting into real estate?
Yeah, I think it's the value creation almost out of thin air, meaning like, so if and now what I do, we can get into a little bit on development, but 1 + 1 can equal 5 in real estate, meaning you buy a piece of land, you build it, those costs, the value exceeds just the cost of what you've just done. So you created value out of thin air. And I realized that kind of early on. I mean, I gravitated towards that because I was like, this is great. I mean, why isn't everyone doing this? Like, if you can execute, you're literally, say your costs are, just for example, for easy math, $1 million total. Buy land, you build a building, $1 million. Well, if you can sell it for 1.5 million, you just created, decent value. And I'm just making up those numbers.
Yeah. If we can do that deal. Yeah.
So, and that, I feel fortunate in that way that I've always, I went to school for something I still do. I know that does,
that's rare.
Yeah.
I went to school for physiology. Look at me now.
Yeah.
I do own a training facility, but I don't really use my degree like I should have.
Yeah.
Did you have a mentor or somebody who was guiding you towards real estate? For me personally, real estate kind of came later as a way to say, I'm making this vertical income, and how do I diversify it into more passive income as a way to potentially break away, I guess, from the job, you know?
Right.
But I agree in assets, value creation, development's a whole different beast, which we'll get into, but.
Yeah. So growing up, my dad owned his business, but it has nothing to do with real estate. It was a executive recruiting firm, kind of a headhunting firm. So I saw the business ownership side of it early on. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was weird or anything. And he was able to coach me. He was able to be around. So that was just the normalcy of my upbringing. But as far as real estate, we didn't do much. Honestly, I kind of studied it myself a little bit in high school, and then in college, just interested in it. So I would read. It was always interesting, like getting papers and like the newspapers when we used to get actual newspapers. I'd be more interested in reading the business section than like the sports section. Even in college, I just was interested in.
You're still that way today.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy the learning about the business industry.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about how to phrase this question. You had so there's the entire class that kind of came out during your tenure at CSU are there's a bunch of real estate studs. And did you guys hang together? What was it about the program coming up through CSU that hey, Darius, can you go check those people, dude?
Yep, I sure will.
They got to be out of their mind right now.
Is that below?
No, it's right next door there. Sanding the walls.
They're doing some construction.
Yeah.
Those guys don't appreciate the podcast.
Well, I gave them the heads up of hey, here's the schedule. They'll work around it. Apparently they just forgot.
Well,
it's freaking construction guys, dude.
That's what I mean. You'll be like, hey, we can't go in there. Be like, okay, yeah. And then they'll be like, well, I'm just sanding. Yeah. All I'm doing is cutting. I'm not nailing. It's dude, construction guys.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're good, brother.
We'll have to work that into the cuts there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you kind of go through this whole time period in college, and you're working on, pursuing your career in real estate. Did that always look like, hey, I'm going to get into development, I'm going to go get into construction? What was that vision, I guess, that you had?
Yeah. Went to college for construction management, business, commercial real estate. Coming out of college, late 2006, 2007, graduated, still really ripe market, frothy, obviously right before the crash. But especially in the construction management industry, CSU has a great program.
Yeah.
Kids were getting pretty good offers. Back then, good offers. But I want to stay local. So I remember just negotiating my tail off for my first salary, $48,500.
Ooh, balling.
Yeah, balling. But but it was a local company that did construction management and real estate development. So I was like, okay, I'm going to, maybe, I mean, there were some kids getting $60,000, which at the time was like, dang, dude, you are rich. Like you are just crushing it.
I mean, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Almost 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's a decent amount of money.
Yeah. Right. I mean, especially for a kid coming out of college, but, I said, okay, I'll take less, kind of for the, on the job education. And there was a small company, local company. They had this one real estate development project that they've kind of were working on because I interned for them.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be on it, man. And I was just like adamant to my boss. I'm like, put me on this project. And he's like, we'll see, we're shuffling staff. I'm like, I don't care. Like I'll take on whatever you give me. And I want this just cause like for me, I wanted that full circle real estate development. I mean, you take a infill project, demo it, come up with a design, execute on it, build it, lease it, and create value. So I mean, that first real job out of school, I just went all in. I mean, I was working crazy hours, kind of the first one in, last one out.
Yep.
Know the project better than anyone else.
Just really cutting your teeth to learn what you didn't know.
Yeah. And my boss, was, I guess to your question, kind of another mentor of sorts, just super savvy in that real estate development world. Yep. And I appreciate him giving me the opportunity, to work on that. So my title was, project engineer, kind of, you're kind of green, you're out of college, but you kind of help superiors run the project. But I was just like, nope, like this is mine. Like I'm taking it on. Yeah. I mean, just like,
well, that's that entrepreneurial quality, right? Or entrepreneurial quality. Just be like, hey, I'm going to own this project, and I think that's an important thing to know, if you're listening to this and that's not you, it's probably question marks if you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur and you're not willing to you're waiting for a title to lead. Entrepreneurship, nobody's going to give you permission. You just got to be able to go do stuff.
Yeah. And I think just kind of, maybe seeing opportunities or being aware of them and then taking advantage of them. Yeah. So like 2 examples, and this is on that very first project. We had a spot carved out for an ATM machine. Again, back in the day, there's still ATMs around, but they were more prevalent then. And it was my job just to go find an ATM provider to bring in, because there's like a mixed use, there's restaurants, it's around students. So it made sense to have one. And I kind of researched one company. I'm like, well, wait a second. Why don't I just do this? Like I can figure this out. So
back to the sombreros and the IDs, man. You were like,
well, yeah. So I did. So I went out and researched. I ended up finding this manufacturer. So I went to my boss and I'm like, hey, cause it has to make sense for all sides in any deal. I'm like, hey, I'll provide the ATM. You'll get a percentage of it. You'll get 20%. I'll take 80%. So it's better for you. It's great for me. And there's no harm, no foul.
And it's a known provider, right? They knew who you were.
Yeah. So I went out, bought this ATM, figured out all the bank account systems. I mean, it's just a processing thing. And it's funny, you got to feed it real cash. So like, you got to kind of front load a bank account. And then I would go over there like once a month with like $10,000, $15,000 of cash, put it in, and then it filters through and you're making $2.50 per transaction. But again, just like, why not me?
Yeah.
The other example in that same project, again, cause I was just hungry. Like I'm just a sponge trying to soak up things, but also like any opportunity, almost to not a default, but you're young, hungry, think you can take on the world. It's like, I can do this.
Yeah.
The project, was a, mixed use deal, meaning it had restaurants on the bottom, and then it had 96 beds or like 50 units to lease up above.
So student housing, right?
Student housing, yeah. Yep. And again, my boss is like, okay, we're gonna have to find a leasing agent, go kind of research, come back with some proposals. I'm like, okay. So I'm like looking at it, I'm like, I can do this.
I can get a commission 96 times.
Well, yeah. So again, I think about it, I kind of research, understand the dynamics, and I go to him with a proposal. I'm like, hey, look, be good for you, be good for me. Like we'll split it 50-50. Yeah. So you're saving 50%. I'm getting more than just my salary. And he was like, well, I appreciate the enthusiasm and stuff, but like with this, we can't afford to fail. So now it's 2008, market's starting to crack. I mean,
it was an intense time.
Yeah. I mean, Wall Street Journal has banks failing, and I'm like, we won't fail. And he's like, okay, I'll give you a deadline. Like I'll give you a shot, but at this date, it's either all or nothing. Like you either earn all your commission or nothing by this date. And I was like, deal. So, I was like, I was like a madman crazy. I mean, people would call and I would like not get them off the phone until they came in and walked and like signed the lease. And I remember I was down my last one and it was like 2 days to go. I went around CSU with pamphlets and just plastered the university. Like I got two units to lease. Like I'm not failing. Like, I mean, I like posted them everywhere. And this nice girl and mom came like the last day and, like just, they were not getting out of there without not signing a lease.
Yeah, it was not an option.
It was not an option. No, it was not an option. And again, like just I enjoyed almost those challenges, but again, like the opportunity of like, and again, off my base salary, made some decent commission.
So how long were you with that first company?
Like six plus years.
And then you made a leap after that, right, to another company, right?
Yeah. So
real quick. So
sure.
You graduated college, 6 years. So you're like 27 at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a little younger, but yeah.
26, 27, something like that. And then you go work for another company.
Yep.
Before you actually fully make the entrepreneurial leap.
Yeah. Yep. So working at that first company, now kind of project manager title in the construction world, started working for another local company who needed a bunch of real estate services. So I was kind of their project manager for a bunch of their stuff and their corporate headquarters. And then they just approached me saying, hey, we're growing like crazy. We need a lot of real estate help, construction help. Are you interested in coming over and just being like an owner's rep, development manager for our growing portfolio? And so I'm in my mid to late 20s, and this company is just growing like crazy.
Can we name that company? Yeah.
Yeah. So Blue Ocean Enterprises, which is the parent company for OtterBox.
Yeah. So it's the family office for OtterBox. Tremendous opportunity to be there. Was it like their lead owner's rep to do all their projects?
Yeah, like owner's rep, development manager.
Yeah. So even now you're going to get even more experience in the development world.
Yeah, like purely development at this point, like overseeing just projects, not necessarily in the weeds or details anymore, more of the execution on the strategy and concept side.
Yeah, soup to nuts.
Soup to nuts. And it was a great experience for me coming in because the type of projects were just unbelievable. So we were doing stuff in the British Virgin Islands.
Oh, wow.
BVI. We're doing a lot of stuff locally in Fort Collins, office buildings, warehouses. We developed a hangar. We were working on a whiskey distillery because the environment I was in, so Blue Ocean Enterprise, which is the family office of OtterBox, very entrepreneurial in general too. So, I mean, I loved it there. I mean, they were spinning out companies and ideas constantly.
More like a venture studio with a real estate arm, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I learned a lot there, both what worked and what didn't work, because they had the blessing of unlimited finances at the time. They were growing like crazy.
Yeah.
So they would kind of chase a lot of deals. And then, it turns out a lot of them didn't work just on the execution, other things. So it also made me realize that money is not the only thing that you need to have successful enterprises.
Yeah. I mean, lots of people chase the sexy, like a whiskey distillery, super cool project, probably not that profitable at the end of the day, office space, so on and so forth, which has probably started shaping your thesis for a lot of what you do now, which is storage, industrial, so on and so forth. And we can kind of get to that. How long did you work for the OtterBox family office, Blue Ocean?
Yeah, about 5.5, 6 years.
Okay, cool. So then now you're like 30-ish, right? Yep. 31-ish before you really make that leap. So what was the catalyst event? What was the thing that took you from continually working the job to saying, okay, I either got this, it's either a deal or a moment or I'm a fed up, forget this moment that you took the leap?
Sure. And it's been interesting. I mean, so both those jobs were around the same period of time. And it's interesting now, and as we fast forward, I've owned my current business for about that same period of time. So I'm challenging myself to stay focused, because it seems like that 6-7 year mark, that whole Peyton Manning, like 10,000 hour thing, like that I'm not getting stir crazy and want to do something else.
Yeah. Little shiny object.
Yeah, but definitely part of it. So I'm working at my job, went back to school for executive MBA at night, which again, still a sponge, trying to soak up as much business acumen, experience, relationships as possible. Some people thought I was kind of crazy because I had a business degree and then getting an MBA, so a advanced degree in business.
Do you think it helped you that much?
Yeah, absolutely. Like people have asked, like, is it worth the investment financially, time wise, sacrifice wise? I mean, between starting a family, having an intense career, and getting an MBA, like I did not have a life. Yeah. Like some of my friends were like, bro, I thought you were dead. Yeah. Like, well, I kind of was for 2 years, but I would say it's absolutely worth it. Both, I mean, financially, you do one real estate deal, it pays for it. But also just that knowledge, skill set, experience. For me, it was definitely worth it. You know, everyone to each their own of what they're after for advanced degrees, but
yeah, I mean, don't get the wrong impression, guys. If you're listening to this, I mean, I think less than 9% of entrepreneurs have MBAs. So most people don't, but I would say it does play a role down the route you were going, raising money, acumen. You know, you're going to start having people write you a couple $1 million to do a development deal. You're trying to build a resume, a body of work.
Yeah. And really I was maybe one or two, call it entrepreneurials in that class. A lot of them were high level management executives in big companies, you know, and so they're kind of going that career. So it was definitely the anomaly in there. But for me, I really wanted to strengthen my financial statement accounting background because I didn't really have a lot of that. And that's what came out of there. I really focused on just understanding balance sheets, cash flow statements, financials, things like that. So, just during that time, I helped my wife and we partnered with another couple start a salon business, kind of a booth rent, which means we own the salon, stylists come in, they actually lease a space. So they're 1099 type of workers, but not employees.
So this is during your executive MBA?
Yes.
So you just like, let's just throw some more shit on top of this.
Yeah, right. And like my wife and I mean, she was pregnant. We had a baby in there. Like it was. We look back now, it was a crazy season.
Drinking from the fire hose.
And that's kind of how a lot of my life has gone, for better or worse. Sometimes I take on too much, but again, I'm like,
both.
Yeah, right. Like let's do it. Why not start a side business while doing all this stuff? Like, I mean, you can sleep when you're dead. So. Did that with another couple, and it was a lot of fun because it was kind of like, have you done some other your ventures? Like, I mean, it was from scratch. So it's like, let's create a brand, let's create a name, a website, business model. Again, this salon world, which me and my friend would talk to people about. We're like, hey, we're starting a salon. They would look at us like we had two heads, like two dudes who shouldn't be anything with salon. But thank God for my wife and then Kelly, the other wife, who just
and they were hairstylists. Right?
Yeah, so my wife's hairstylist by trade, so she really knew the industry. Right. I just saw I saw the opportunity. I'm like, why not? We can take this on.
Well, and that's a good match too, because Abby's she's the stylist. You're the business guy. Yeah, and so there's lots of stylists who want to go open salons, just like lots of people want. It's cool to work out, so I think I should go own a gym. Exactly. Two different skill sets.
Exactly right. There, another analogy I like is being a really good chef is different than owning a restaurant.
Yes.
Two completely different skill sets. Nothing wrong with one or the other, but you got to know what you're getting into.
Yeah, stay in your lane.
Yeah. So we did that. We stood it up. Successful business. So that was really I'd say the tipping point of my thirst growing for just. I was looking for the next deal, the next opportunity, the next business. Because I got this one done. I'm coming out of my MBA. I'm just really thriving of like kind of small business, understanding that this one was successful. You know, we didn't fail. So really I was looking for a real estate deal, like kind of a passive thing. I never had a plan of like, okay, I'm going to set this up and take a leap per se.
Right.
It was a little bit more like I found this opportunity. I found this deal. I actually took it to my current employers and said, hey, I was like, this is my deal. Do you want in? And I probably should have presented it differently now in hindsight, because they're like, well, that's not what your role is here. You know, like, and if anything, a deal like, yeah, it's a good deal. Maybe we'll do it. But they weren't looking for partnerships to say
and
that.
You wanted some equity. You wanted to participate in the upside.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I was kind of like, hey, this is my deal. Do you want in? Kind of like mentality. They're like, well, you know, like that's
little fish, big pond.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And they're like, well, you know, cause again, finances was not an issue for them.
Yeah. They could have one check.
Yeah.
Struck it.
And so, you know, and rightfully so, partnerships were a high risk to them because of their net worth and things. So I totally get that. So,
and you're the rookie in the development world, kind of. I mean, you'd already done tons of projects for them at that point, but
yeah. Well, just, I guess another just nugget. So during all this time was going on, I was in a fraternity in college, and after that, I became the president of the housing corporation, which just means we oversaw the real estate that the fraternity was in.
Yeah.
As a completely volunteer position, didn't get paid anything. I oversaw that development from soup to nuts. So I took on that volunteer position as unpaid education while I was doing all my other stuff. But it was the first time that it was all me leading it. So it was a good deal for me because I got a great education.
Yeah.
It was a good deal for them because they didn't have to pay a developer to do it. But again, all these are adding up to like, okay, this is doable. It's achievable. Now,
do you think that kind of experience is important? Because I feel like there's, myself included, doing development. It's something that I'm doing now, but something that I've just always wanted to do. But man, there's so many unknowns and it takes a lot of money up front. Do you think that's one of the best ways that people who really want to get into that should go? Like, go work for a development shop, go work for a developer.
Absolutely. Like, if you're interested in real estate development, and there's different avenues to get into. Like, I kind of came up through the, call it, construction management avenue. You can come in through the real estate brokerage avenue. You can come in through kind of the real estate finance mortgage avenue. Plenty of different ways to kind of plug in.
Yep.
But yeah, I would go get educated with a company or a nonprofit, or like, that's kind of what mine was, like, volunteer your time, get on Habitat for Humanity, type of board, like use other people's projects, money, not in a bad way, but if you're an employee.
Be a facilitator, right? Like, be a middleman. It's like being a broker.
Yeah, right.
Like when I was how I learned to trade commodities, I was a broker. I was helping other people place trades. And I go, hey, why'd you place the trade like that? Oh, because I got, 10,000 pigs. Right. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm hedging my bets. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, right, exactly right. I mean, learn from, and when I was doing that, that's when I saw the true value creation. I was making it for other people. My first company, I was making it for them. My second company, I was making it for them. I mean, the nonprofit, you could even see it. So it's like, you understand the potential and the risks involved of going through it before I just jump out and say, hey, this is I'm going to do it. And then you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's when you potentially can get clobbered.
So that first deal, the one that we've been talking about, is that the one that kind of sets you on the journey? You officially take the leap, and let's kind of speed up the story to how did that all go down? Tell us about that first deal.
Sure. Yeah. So, I kind of had this opportunity that I was eyeing, and that just a kind of a God thing too, through a mutual friend, got introduced to now my business partner for almost 7 years.
And that's
Lee Frederick, out of Colorado Springs. And a kind of a mentor as well, just a little older than me. And he's been specifically in the self-storage industry forever.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do now. But so
and he was a really good operator, right? Like, he had the chops and like how to operate a facility, if I remember correct.
Absolutely. So he was kind of a one man wrecking crew, but really on the operation. So he would kind of just hang around. He would do a deal every few years, but he would literally run it himself. I mean, he sat behind the desk and rented units. He swept them out. So he really started from bottom, and then as an owner as well, but just understand the nuances of operating self-storages, because a lot of people are like, oh, self-storage is great, don't they just run themselves, right? Like, you must be killing. It's like, well, no.
Such an understatement.
Yeah, you got to get the real estate up, and that's kind of what we specialize in, development, but then you got to operate a business. And like, as you know, everything now, we got to have marketing, you got to have SEO, there's revenue management, there's employees, there's issues. So
third-party managers that you're managing, the managers.
It's every single location we have is an operating business. So you got to really not lose sight of that, because that's how they'll fail. But so we met, and I'm like, hey, I kind of got this opportunity. Let's look at it together. And he's like, okay. And so we talked, and I was like, well, let's do it. Kind of that's my whole thing.
And it was going to be a storage facility?
Storage facility.
How big was the piece of dirt?
Piece of dirt was about 4.5 acres.
Cool. How many units could you fit on that?
So we went through, I remember just on my computer kind of designing different iterations of unit mix and drive lanes, just design stuff. Yeah. Kind of doing it myself at night. So it had about 500 units total.
Wow.
It was in Fort Collins, but we had that one, and then we actually had another opportunity in Colorado Springs where Lee lives. And so I quickly realized, like, I can't just work on this at night. I can't just moonlight this stuff. Like, I got to either commit or kill it. You know, so talked to my wife about it. And she's just like my foundation, my rock. She's very solid.
She's like, whatever you think, babe.
Well, yeah, she's like, hey, I trust you. Like, you know, like, I mean, you've kind of been on this wild ride anyway, but hey, if that's where you're feeling called to go, and like, let's do it.
It's awesome.
So made the leap. And it's interesting. I mean, I was talking to other guys about starting their own businesses, and one of the advice it's like, the world doesn't stop spinning the day you start your own business. Meaning, like, all the fears you have of like all this, like, it's going to be fine. Like, it's going to work out. And even if it doesn't, the experience and what you've gone through, like, you're going to be a more valuable person.
What do you think stops people from taking that leap? Is it the fear of failing? What is it?
Yeah, I think it's the fear of failing. So I think for entrepreneurs or business owners, and again, like, to be an entrepreneur, to me, doesn't mean you have to like invent a new widget. Like, I heard it great one time, like, if the founder of Airbnb went on Shark Tank, he would have got like booed out of there.
Yeah, because it wasn't super innovative.
Yeah, right. It's not a product. He's like, hey, I want to share people sleeping on my couch, and they're like, that's a
dumb idea.
Not going to make any money. So I think entrepreneur more is like, to me at least, just opportunistic. Like, do you see an opportunity
to create value?
To create value, do something else. You know, and I worked with a lot of small businesses, and don't take this the wrong way, but they weren't sophisticated. No. They weren't like dialed in. They weren't just cutting edge. I mean, some of these guys, I'm like, how are they still in business? But
I had a friend just sell his company for like 15 million. He's 66, doing 26 million top line. Not very sophisticated in the slightest. How'd you do it? I worked hard, ate my oatmeal every day, and did it again for 30 years. You know,
honestly, I think there's something to that, like the persistence of it. So I guess, going back to your question of like, why do people maybe not do it? I think it's the fear of the unknown, or, and again, this is kind of a personality thing for people who are interested in business or starting business. So the way I look at it, I think if you have a job, you're more at risk than if you're creating your own job, because you have zero control of when you're going to get fired or cut loose or downsized, even if you're a rock star, right?
Right.
You have a boss, they have a boss, depending on the size of the company, and they could cut a whole division.
I mean, that's been happening right now, right?
Exactly right.
2023 has been the year of people getting wrecked.
So people who feel security with a W-2 and they've been there for X amount of years, you know, and they feel secure, I think it's a false sense of security. On the business ownership side, I feel like it's more secure because it's on you, right? Like, so you eat what you kill, and I guess you're investing in yourself. But I would much rather be in that position than just thinking you're okay, safe, when you're really not. So it's a perception of safety, I think, too.
Yeah, and a misconception that you had it all figured out, that I had it all figured out. It's a lot like driving at night. You jump in your car, you turn on your headlights, you can see like, I don't know, 300 feet in front of you. You know where you're going, like destination-wise, your house, but you can only see 300 feet in front of you. So do you just sit there and do nothing?
Right.
No, you get in the car and you drive, and you know, you see the next 300 feet and the next 300 feet, and you hit a roadblock and you make a right and take the detour, and the destination doesn't change. But yeah, at a certain point, you just got to take the leap.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's really what we did. I mean, took the leap. So I remember that, you know, and so real estate development is specifically is a little bit is capital intensive. I mean, it takes a lot of money up front before you ever gain it back or get it, and especially in self-storage, because I shouldn't say not a lot, 0 cities or municipalities like shake our hands and like pat us on the back. Hey, thanks for coming in here. We, you know, really, we appreciate the economic activity.
Yeah,
a lot of them
hate it.
Yeah, they're like, I don't think so. Like, it's going to be a tough sled, might get denied, things like that. But that whole time we're investing money in design, consultants, permit fees. So this first one, I mean, I think I had like $50,000 to my name. And so I put that in, my partner put money in, but you
were tied up.
It was all or nothing. And again, like I go back, I mean, I bought my first house with like $700 as well. Like, I'm always just
leverage the debt, baby. Let's go.
Well, figuring out ways to get stuff done. And this first deal, again, I was hell bent that it was going to be successful. And to the point where I went into the city office, to the city planner, and got in a heated conversation in the middle of the hallway about the classification of self-storage. And again, this is in the weeds, but the classification matters when going through approvals of if it's industrial, light industrial, commercial, et cetera. And the city kind of had a default of what this zone area was classified. So I came in with like research about how REITs classify self-storage, the industry is classified, and got in a heated argument with the senior planner about it. And again, I was pretty adamant, and
you had to.
I had to.
And I think this is such a great lesson. There are so many people that are quote unquote side hustling, right? And they got like 1 foot kind of in this little business that they want to start or whatever. They're doing something stupid like selling freaking candles or something with some stupid multi-level marketing thing. And it's like, you're not a real entrepreneur until you literally burn the boats and there's no going back.
Yeah.
It's super important.
That's a great analogy. Burning the boats, right? I mean, it's like for me, I almost can't have a backup plan.
Yeah.
You got to be all in. I mean, I was, again, it's like when I was leasing those units or talking to this planner, I was very adamant of like, no is not an option.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, you know, and I've learned I got to be sensitive how to navigate that. Like,
well, you don't want to piss the planners off.
Well, you can't always have a hammer, right? If you're building a house, you have to have more tools than just pounding.
Slug them in the face.
All the time. And I've learned that, you know, some hard lessons with that too, but there's also something to be about persistent and passionate. I mean, he said afterwards, he's like, I don't necessarily agree with you, but like, I understand where you're coming from. And like I understand you're passionate about this.
Yeah. The more that I do these pods, the more that I recognize is just entrepreneurship's really just a mindset. You know, everybody's waiting for this skill or this perfect moment, or this perfect opportunity. There is never literally a right time for anything, but you have to be that committed to it and that resourceful to try to get the deal done. So you obviously end up getting it approved, right?
Yep. So got it approved.
And then how long does it take you after you get it approved to get it through entitlements, build, like the whole thing? Yeah.
So an average project takes about a year from like entitlements,
right.
Getting it designed and approved, ready to be built. And nowadays we're spending a few $100,000 per project between all the fees and consultants things. So that first one, I mean, literally you're just all in.
Yeah.
But during that time, and again, with my background of being in construction, myself and Lee, we had now a few we had that first one that was kind of going, leading the way and tracking very well, and we had some other opportunities. So I went to a existing general contractor. I said, hey, look, we got 4 projects right now. We got a big pipeline. You know, we're doing big things. No, we haven't done anything yet, but we're doing big things. Are you interested in partnering with us? Like, you're a preferred builder. In return, we get a discount, a lower fee. And then we just need like real-time budgets and schedules and things like this. And I talked to 2 of them. Both of them were like, yeah. You know, you like, send us your project. We'll give you a bid. Like, one, really not believing in us. And 2, busy enough where they didn't think a discount was warranted at all. So again, I'm kind of like, well, screw this. Why don't we do it ourselves?
Right.
If we can, I have the wherewithal. Lee, to a degree, has been around construction. So let's just start our own company. Like, we get the insight, we get the intel, we get transparency. It's another revenue stream, which I love, trying to create multiple revenue streams.
And getting vertically integrated in your space is pretty important, right? To be able to do the dirt and do the ground up and all that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, for me, maybe I'm kind of a control freak, but it's better control. Like, now we have it in-house. So if it fails, it's on us versus a third-party contractor. Fails, it's like, well, you can scream and yell, but now it's on us. So we went out. Lee knew another colleague who's was working in the general contracting world. So we brought him in to start our general contracting company. And it was a great environment, kind of now creating this ecosystem, because we have an infant general contracting company, but the day it's organized, we have 4 projects that we're feeding them.
Right.
So that, they're not out knocking on doors, trying to do basement remodels. It's like, hey, you got 4 full-size projects. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the hitting the ground running.
That was the catalyst. Yeah. That was the jump start to the real development construction business.
Yeah.
And along the way, you guys ended up, obviously it's very capital intensive. So there's a certain point where you have enough of your own development projects going that you don't have any cash. And it's the typical developer problem, right? Too many deals, not enough cash, or too much cash and not enough deals. And so along the way, you guys bring in a third partner, which is a capital group, right?
Yeah. Well, and actually on our first handful too, we brought in a capital partner because to your point, I mean, say a $6 million, $10 million deal, it needs some serious money
Right.
that, I mean, we didn't have personally. So the idea was, again, like back to that, we go create the value, meaning we find a deal, we find a piece of land, we get it entitled, it's in a great market, we believe it's going to do well with a pro forma and financing.
Yep.
I love a saying of like, don't worry about ever not finding money. Worry like when you can't find good ideas.
Yeah.
Money will follow good ideas. Money will follow good projects.
And it also flows to a good deal, but also to competency, which you had this resume, this track record, this experience, this partnership, this company that now backed it. It's like, you're not going to go raise money on like, hey, I have no construction experience. I've never done a deal before. Yeah.
Right. I don't think you're not going to get a lot of money if you're asking for that type of stuff. So yeah, I mean, you got to know what you're talking about because that capital world is very interesting and rightfully so. They want to make sure their money is protected the best they can.
Absolutely.
And get a risk return profile. So we partnered with a company, All Pro Capital, for the last 7 years, and it's been fun because as we've grown, they've grown as well. They just hit their 10-year mark.
Dang.
But we were some of their first deals with them, and we've done a lot of deals with those guys. But it's super important in the real estate world if anyone's interested to. At the end of the day, it's relationships. Regardless of who it is. But I'd say specifically important on the capital side because you got money involved, you got investors, you got people's livelihood on the line. So the way we do it is capital brings the cash and then we guarantee the debt. So it's like, hey, your investment's on the line. My livelihood's on the line. If this thing fails completely, I mean, I got my family, my house, my thing. So it's a good balance of checks and balances of making sure we're not just deal junkies. We're doing fundamentally sound. And then when we say, hey, we believe in this project, we're ready to go. They have a trust of like, okay, these guys must be ready because they're also signing on the dotted line.
Well, and you've already sunk a bunch of cash into it at that point too.
Yep. Yeah. Great point.
How are you paying yourself in those early days, right? Because you're putting a lot of cash out, but you're not getting a lot of cash in, and the timelines to get them through can be 2 years before you put a shovel in the ground. In some cases. Yeah.
So again, I mean, lean bootstrapping. Took a salary, but I actually took a reduced salary from where I was. I mean, kind of pay the bills, but there wasn't. I mean, we're basically paying ourselves. Like, hey, we're starting a company, but we're now paying ourselves payroll. So we organized it, but it was what do we need to survive? Knowing it's going to be a long burn. To your point, real estate development. So, and this is now self-storage, which we specialize in, flex warehouse, but call it a year to entitle develop. So we're now spending money for that year in hopes we get it approved. Assuming we get it approved and ready to be built, that money is refunded to us. So now we're made whole, zero.
Right.
And then we have a little bit of a development fee while it's under construction. But then really these projects don't produce any income for 3 years. In storage. So again, great business. Like, okay, well, let me just tell you, is that you got a 5-year horizon before you actually really make money. Like, I mean, so are you ready for that?
Most people can't make it 3 months.
Well, yeah, right. It's like the reps and like discipline, like deferred gratification. Like it's there, but it's 5 years from now. So if you start today, 5 years, but if you fast forward 25 years and then you zoom back, if you're doing a few a year, you see those guys that are older in their life cycle. It pays well.
Were there any moments where you ever felt like getting a job, or maybe you felt the need to go take some projects that like bridge the gap? Nobody talks about that, but right? I have had those moments where like, I guess I'll take this consulting gig because I'm not making crap on this other stuff right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a real thought, especially early on when you're like, just, is this going to work or not? And like, money's tight. They're like, but again, like one of the guys I've talked to before I made the leap was just like, look, the worst thing is you fail, and like you fail miserably, and like you fall on your face. And he like kept going through these analogies. I'm like, this doesn't sound like uplifting
You're making
stuff.
This less attractive.
Right? But he's like, but listen, like, so you go get another job, right? You are now more valuable to the industry, to the world, because you've experienced things that just a normal employee hasn't. So he's like, worst thing is you go get your old job back or a job that's similar or better, and you're going to be fine. Like you're going to figure it out. And that was a little, that was enlightening just cause like, not that it's a parachute, but like the world won't end. So there, there's times when it's like, well, that first deal, if it didn't go through, I mean, we would have been hosed, we would have been tough. Borrowing money from family or going back and getting a job. I mean, and that happened for the first handful. I mean, we were working on another early project. I tied up a big piece of land at the time, 12 acres. We brought in, and then again, we were learning like who good capital partners are and what that means. And there was this couple who was going to be the only source of equity. So sole source equity, meaning they're bringing it all, which sounds great in theory because it's easy.
Until they don't show up.
So we go through all the legal documents, operating agreements, they're signing. 2 days before closing, they say, okay, send us the wiring instructions. We're ready to go as an investor. So we're like, okay, this is smooth. The day before closing, they just send an email. Hey, we've reconsidered. I'm not going to do the deal. And we have to close on land, $1.6 million land the next day. We don't got it. I mean, they left us at the altar. They spend their time in France, so now they're not answering questions. Still, I've never heard from them from that text, and this is 6.5 years ago. But talk about stressful times. I mean, you got to.
What'd you do?
Well, after I kind of picked myself up from just falling over, went into just kind of problem solving mode. So first thing is we're going to need more time on the land. Like we can't close tomorrow. Call the broker, call the seller. Of course, they don't like to hear it, but I'm like, I mean, listen, I'm very open about what happened.
Yeah, they left us at the altar, man.
Left us at the altar. We're going to need more time. We got this all set up. It's a good deal. We'll find money. Give us time. So after just back and forth with that, we were able to get another, I think, 40 days. And we spent that time really hitting the streets to find additional equity to bring in. It ended up working out all right. But that's a stressful month in the life of a newer business owner, entrepreneur.
Would you say that was one of the most memorable, lowest kind of stressful moments?
Yeah, because that was, if that did not happen, again, we had a lot of our money tied up in that deal. And if we weren't able to get it done, like it would have, I don't know if it would have been a nail in the coffin, but it would have been close. It would have been a blow that, you got to lick your wounds and try and come back to.
Yeah. So then we fast forward a little bit though, and then you have this, I don't want to call it a break because you were pretty successful, but you tried to go take down a pretty massive deal, like a huge portfolio that was maybe punching a little bit above your weight.
For sure. Story of my life.
But what came from that is probably the coolest part of this whole story. And I'd love to let you tell it, but you tried to buy this massive portfolio, right? And maybe I'm overstating it, massive, but how big was it?
No, it was massive, especially for us. It was 180 million.
Wow. And
to give you context, I mean, our average deals were like 10 million, and we would do 4 or 5 of those a year. So to take a bite or try and take down a $180 million portfolio, meaning multiple properties all sold at once. I mean, we were trying to eat an elephant. I mean, right. I mean, we were out there eating antelope and things, but we saw that elephant. We're like, let's try and take that thing down.
Yeah. Well, and you got it under contract, right?
Yeah. Got under contract, due diligence, solid deal. But again, kind of punching above our weight class. We went to go find equity, and these guys were like, you're kind of mom and pop-ish, and this is institutional. We ran out of time to find an equity partner that believed in us as the operator, sponsor, and things like that. So,
right.
Again, we had money tied up in it, but through a relationship, we talked to one of the publicly traded REITs, so real estate investment trusts, is traded on Wall Street, and specifically in self-storage, and asked if they basically wanted it and for us to assign all the work we've done, all the due diligence, all the financing, all the underwriting. And we would just take an assignment fee, which is relatively standard in real estate,
right?
For them to take it on. And so they looked at it, they liked it. And so we ended up transitioning that over to them, which financially made a lot of sense for us because one, we got out of it. I mean, we had a lot of money tied up that we were just going to lose. We were able to get an assignment fee.
Which was pretty healthy, right?
Yeah, pretty healthy. It was two tranches. So up front when we executed, and then kind of on the back end with some performance execution stuff.
Did you guys end up operating for them on that, or did they had their own operation?
No, they had their own operations. So, I mean, our kind of the assignment fee was basically we handed them over the nice deal on a silver platter that we controlled. So, so they were able to take it down. But that also then opened the door for the relationship with this publicly traded REIT. So because of that, kept in conversation, kept talking with them. And by now, so this is 4.5, 5 years into our operations. I mean, we have now a relatively small but private portfolio of properties. So we talked to this REIT about doing a joint venture with them. And not to get too much in the weeds, but their structure is they do joint ventures with operators who specialize in self-storage, who kind of have a similar pedigree of us, that we are continually either buying or building self-storage, growing a portfolio, because that's what the REITs like, or cash flow.
Yeah, which created a whole other source of equity for you, because you become like an owner in the REIT, right? Is that how it works?
Yeah. So again, I mean, this is always, I guess, learning on the job is another like trait of an entrepreneur, because like, I mean, we did small joint ventures on a one-off basis and kind of, like a local attorney helping us with legal documents. But as this relationship evolved with the REIT, we were talking about kind of like next level partnerships. I mean, it's a joint venture, but it's a publicly traded company. There's stock options. There's different type of stocks, and what it would look like if we basically sold our assets to them, but instead of us just taking cash, we take shares in a different stack than just kind of common shares, and become a partner with them. I mean, and that process took almost a year. It was kind of during early COVID. So, it was kind of start, stop, understanding where the world was, but also just the legal aspects of it. We had to create another partnership with a management company, because we were lacking in that strength. And that's what this REIT wanted, was strong management, strong operators. So we're now creating all these different structures and agreements and partnerships in real time, and getting legal advice, getting advice from other people about the do's and don'ts and what should we watch out for with this level of structure and the gotchas. But we ended up executing it a few years ago, which was a great deal for us. It kind of brought us up to the next level. We contributed about a dozen properties, but it was like a 9-figure type of contribution number.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that doesn't all go to us. I mean, you got to pay off debt, you got to pay off investors, but then in the profit, we rolled into ownership into the REIT company. So it's, I mean, that, like, people hear that story, that's like, well, great, but it starts with that first deal.
Just do one.
I mean, borderline screaming at a senior planner of doing one. I mean, like that's. And there was no roadmap of, I want to do this, then I want to get here.
Yeah, we're going to do 10, and then we're going to do that. And like, nothing works that way. You can have a semblance of an idea what might happen, but in the wise words of the famous philosopher Mike Tyson, right? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah. I think you got to have a plan, and a plan B and a plan C, right? I mean, like, and for me, I'm very goal oriented. So I do have these, milestones I want to hit and trajectories, and I have like a 1-3-5 year plan. I break it down, both business, non-business. So I have a pathway of where I want to go. But to your point, it's like 300 feet at a time, driving in the dark. I mean, and you got to adapt. Maybe you do a left turn, then you go straight for a while, then you do a right turn. So you're, where you want to go. It's just the points to get there are
unclear.
And you got to be okay with that. If you're going to start, but you got to, we're in an environment right now where I'd say it's more uncertain now than it has been since I started my business 7 years ago.
Yeah. And you started in the thick of it.
Yeah.
The last thick of it.
Yeah. Right. I
you had less risk on the table though. So you had nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose. Yeah. Right. Everything. It's like, it is interesting to have everything to lose or nothing to lose. Like, depends how you look at it.
So, I want to be considerate of our time here. Kind of looking back, is there anything that you wish you would have known before you started on the journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, what I always tried to do was like either partner with people of not strengths of mine or get stronger in that. An example being like I went to go get my MBA at night for like financial literacy acumen to really understand that. Because I didn't have that early on, especially in real estate development. It's a lot of it's finance and just financial statements. What I wish I would have learned early on, it's a good question. And I think just even when you feel like you're kind of beaten up, you got to just keep going. And like, fortunately for me, I'm pretty stubborn, so you just got to keep grinding out, because as a business owner, entrepreneur, you're going to have bad days. I mean, the one thing, like they say, like, there is no 9 to 5, like, employees go home, we take it home.
Yeah.
And you deal with it, whether it's personnel, whether it's market shifts, whether it's financing. I mean, it's a lot. So, and one thing I've learned, and maybe this would be that too, is like have people that you can talk with, to debrief with.
Other entrepreneurs.
Yeah. If entrepreneurs, friends, family, whoever, have someone, and I mean, business owner, call it whoever, to like talk about this stuff, because there's books and things, but like, and kudos to you for like the podcast, like you're out there figuring it out on your own. So, you need resources, people you can trust. Be like, man, I just got slobbered today, or what do you think about this? Or, and also celebrate wins. Like, when we did our REIT deal, there's a few people that I can call and be like this, and where they're like, hey man, that's awesome, versus, calling people who are like, oh, well, like,
just not about it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've heard from your story is just, you spent a great deal of time getting the knowledge, the foundational knowledge that you needed. Your attitude was everything's pretty figure-outable, right? Your habit was you're very much just like consistent, day in, day out, kind of routine driven. And I just know that about you because I know you personally.
Yeah.
But the skills, those just come by being in the arena. Like, there are certain things about deals or real estate or entrepreneurship that you're just not going to learn unless you get kicked in the head. And there's no way around it.
No way around it. And I totally agree. And I mean, that's where I think like supplement the skills with volunteering. Like when you volunteer, you're around people then you otherwise might not be. Fundraiser events, nonprofits, things like that.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I remember early on, I'd be sitting in like a development meeting or like, listen to like some financing banks, and they'd like use terms that I wasn't familiar with. And I'd like scribble them down, like
give them the nod and then be like, I have no idea.
Well, yeah. And I'd go back and like research, like what is debt service coverage? Like in a meeting, they're like, we need to make sure we got debt service coverage. I'm like, yeah, we do.
Sure do.
Like, and then like, cause again, until you're in the arena, you don't know. And then you're like, okay, then now you understand what they're talking about. And I mean, so it's definitely an educational process. And I think it's the consistency of it. I mean, for me, that's what's been successful, is not giving up, and it's like, okay, now looking back 7 years, it's a decent story, but it's day in and day out of what you're doing to get there. And I mean, that's where I look like another 7 years from now, or, 10 years plus, like where I want to be. You got to be doing the stuff day in and day out, whether it's health, fitness, faith, family, but career wise.
What are you most excited about right now in the business?
So we've gone through some transitions and like kind of right-sized both companies, but I'm really excited about where we're going in this current time. Almost being a little bit of a contrarian, because so right now markets are all over the place, especially real estate's kind of in the bullseye of some concerns for sure.
Yeah.
But I think with that, and again, I saw it 2008, 2010. I mean, it kind of came crashing down. And companies that were able to call it survive were actually thriving. So I think, we've done a good job as best we can getting ready for this period of staying active, staying lean, and being ready to take advantage of these opportunities that are coming.
They're not quite there yet.
But not quite there yet. I mean, you sent out another one. Like, everything happens slow until it doesn't.
Yep.
So it's coming. It's glacially moving.
Yeah.
So it's weird. I'm not excited for the markets to turn. I mean, I look back at the heyday of cheap money. And I always want, like, I never want to look back and be like, man, I wish I would have done more. Like, I feel pretty good. Like we ran as fast as we could.
Yeah, you're doing like what, 9 deals a year between development and acquisition or something like that for like 6 years?
Yeah, well, and even the last 3 years, I mean, we were 20 plus. I mean, we were on a tear.
You were coming out of some deals that went full cycle, right?
Yeah. And it was, doing as many as you can, as many good deals as you can with cheap money. That's changed. So the velocity.
Well, and cheap is relative, right? I think specifically on the debt markets, and we won't go too far down the rabbit hole, but right now price is a function of debt. Yeah. And so it only feels not cheap because prices haven't really adjusted to accommodate the new debt service. Yeah.
There's still just a disconnect between buyer and sellers and values. But again, in those cracks, there's opportunity there.
Yeah. I mean, you're seeing more seller financing. You're seeing people talking about things that 2 years ago they'd have been like, get out of here with that.
Yeah, right. We're seeing people answer the phones. Yeah. 2 years ago,
brokers calling you now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, hey, you got anything to look at? I'm like,
yeah, exactly. Well, let's land the plane, man. What do you think separates those people who become successful entrepreneurs? Can't even say the word. Entrepreneurs from those who give up, quit, or never get started.
So what separates those two?
Yeah, what's the difference, man?
Well, I love the word mindset. I know it's kind of thrown out a lot, but the mindset going in of, again, I'd say the false sense of security versus like if I were to give someone advice, starting out, invest in yourself. Like you are going to be the best person when you're investing in yourself. And again, it takes time. Go get that skill set, go learn, go get mentors, go try stuff out. But and Warren Buffett, right? Like the best way or like the best thing to do during a recession is invest in yourself. Get more education, skill set, whatever.
Right.
Because to me, I think that's the most important thing. And then believing in yourself so I think that's the separating thing of like knowing you're safer in this other world of being an entrepreneur than you actually are as a W-2 employee. And safe is relative because doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's going to be financially rewarding at all, or it might take time. Doesn't mean it's going to be stress-free. But at the end of the day, I would much choose to live in this world because it does come with great things. I mean, like freedom. Like I have a saying that says, I own my schedule.
Yeah.
Meaning that it's not that I don't have a crazy schedule, but I own it. So, meaning if I want to go to my kid's event, I schedule other calls around that.
Or come on a podcast.
Then I schedule everything around that.
Yeah, as you should.
Yeah, move it all around. But like, so it's that the mindset of what you're getting into. And again, and knowing that it's not just not going to be easy, but it's going to be rewarding.
Let's say somebody's listening to this right now. They're either thinking about starting or maybe they're just getting started, like early days. And you remember what that was like. What advice, wisdom would you give them?
Well, I'd say first do it. I mean, make the jump. If someone's listening to this or just if they're thinking about it, do it. And there's never a right time to do it. So don't wait for the markets to correct. Don't wait for you to have X amount of money in the bank. Don't wait for X, Y, or Z. Like pull the Band-Aid off and do it. And not irresponsibly. So, I mean, that's the balance of like, know what you're going to have a plan, but then eventually make that jump. Because again, the advice I got, like the world doesn't stop spinning. That first day,
I love that saying so much.
The first day that you're like your own boss, entrepreneur, or anything, like everything still goes on, and like a lot of people I think will be happy for you. Again, if you know what you're doing, say you've worked in a certain industry, now you're doing your own thing. I mean, the people are like, yeah, great. I'd love to be your first customer. I'll give you a little, contract, or I'll, throw you a bone here and like start you out. Now, not everyone's going to be that way if they're envious and stuff, but I would say do it. I mean, and that's more the way I look at it. Like, you're never going to regret trying it. I think what people would regret if they didn't try it.
100%.
Just, my first job, I remember working, there was this older guy there, super nice. But I told myself, like, it was like the first week of the job. I'm like, if I'm that guy when I'm in like my mid 50s, like I have failed myself.
Yeah.
Because and again, nice guy, but just there, not doing much else, kind of buying his time. And I'm
limiting his potential.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's just not me. Like, I mean,
sounds like death.
Life's too short to just go through it. So try it. And if you fail, you fail, but at least you gave it a shot.
And you only fail if you quit. And the odds of you like coming up short are actually lower than everybody thinks it is, right? It's, failure to plan obviously is a big part of it. Don't just be reckless and go in and, tell your boss to kick rocks and take the leap. Like, do some planning. And I think I've heard you say that before, like get a rolling start, right? Yeah. And that's a great way to go about it. But once you're in the game, that's when the opportunities actually show up. Nobody thinks you're serious if you're just kind of doing development. You're just kind of in the game of entrepreneurship. And people want to work with serious people.
Yeah. And I think most people want to see a new, hungry person, entrepreneur succeed.
100%.
And I go back, like it's not overly sophisticated to be this. Back to that first project when I was leasing out all the units, a lot of, it was student housing, so the students don't have any credit. So we would check all the parents' credit. A light bulb went off in my mind of how many parents who made decent to healthy incomes were business owners of things you would never think about. So, I mean, it was again, like you can be an entrepreneur business owner in anything. I mean, they were a widget company, a landscape company. I mean, just the cleaning company, like just
egg farmer,
egg farm, right? But it was like, but their title would be owner. And I was like, dang, these guys are crushing it. So there's a lot of opportunity for people who just see opportunity, seek opportunity.
And I think if you're listening to this, you desire to control your own destiny, you have this itch, this calling to create, but also entrepreneurship is the number one path to building wealth. It's not savings. It's not stock markets. It's not 401ks. And candidly, it's not even just owning real estate. It's actually having a business that allows you to create vertical income and then deploying that into stable cash producing assets, right? Like, nobody's ever made millions of dollars just buying real estate. They've had development businesses or they built a software company or something else, and then they went and bought real estate. That's generally how it goes. It's very rare to find somebody who's just like a purebred, real estate owner who built some empire, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, for the vast majority of us, and including me, and I think you too. I mean, you got to make money along the way. So real estate is call it a savings account. A great way to accumulate wealth over time, but you got to pay the bills, you got to eat, you got to feed the family. So you got to find ways to create revenue streams while that real estate is building up.
100%.
And that's kind of, people specialize in different things: brokerage, finance, development.
Yeah, if you're like in M&A, we're doing M&A now, and we do a lot of consulting, right? Like if you're a developer, you do a lot of brokerage, right? If you're a developer, you might have a construction company where you're doing jobs for other people. You got to be able to diversify a little bit to get the real-time income. And that's the game, man. So, if people wanted to follow you, what's the best social platform for them to go look you up?
Man, I'm so bad on like the whole social marketing thing. We're getting better. Meaning so we got a website that's updated.
Your new website looks great, by the way.
Well, I appreciate that. So upliftdg.com, upliftdevelopmentgroup.com is our main website. Really that's where we're updating projects, opportunities for investors, clients, things like that.
Cool. Yeah. And you got a LinkedIn or something, right?
Yeah. I got a LinkedIn. I'm on there. I'm not on Facebook yet. I'm waiting for my daughter to get to the like awkward age, and then I'll be like her first friend when she creates.
Just
one.
Use way too many emojis and comments.
Yeah, right. All the time. Like,
I remember the first time I saw your LinkedIn picture. I'm like, who is this nerd with the glasses on? Not realizing that you wore glasses and you have contacts. Yeah. So maybe update your picture too, huh?
I think I've done that since. All right. Check it out. Let me know.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you being here, and just excited for the next one.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, bro.